This is Cinematic Suffering, where we watch every horror movie streaming on Netflix, from A to Z, for better or worse. Life is pain, and so are bad horror movies.
Boom.
Bang.
Boom. And a bang. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Cinematic Suffering. I am Jason, and my co-host is the delightful, ever-loving, and thoughtful
Clay. That's me. I am all those things. Those are the adverbs that people, adjectives actually, that describe me best.
Yes, and we are here in episode 8, I believe, right?
That's it. Episode 8, the
Episode
first in the lettered category.
Yes, we are finally in the letter categories. We're out of the numbers. No more goofy-ass titles like 6 minus 5 equals 2, 1920 London, the things that are just weird and have numbers.
6 souls.
6 souls. I have this weird infatuation, not infatuation, but I hate numbers. I hate math. And that last 6 minus 5 equals 2 just totally fucked me over. So I'm glad we are finally in some solid alphabetical letters.
That's right. We're finally entering into the relevant part of our premise. And the premise is we're reviewing the Netflix horror catalog A through Z.
A through Z, every single one. No regrets.
No regrets, no rejerks, no. Yeah, whatever other words we can make up there.
So this week's movie was an interesting one. You want to give a little brief introduction on it?
Yeah, this one is called A Dark Song, and it was directed by Liam Gavin. It's also written by Mr. Gavin. It was released in 2016 and stars Steve Oram, Catherine Walker, Susan Launane, and Mark Huberman.
Yeah, and this was I wasn't dreading this one actually, because you said you'd already seen it, and you said it was pretty good. So I was taking your word for it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take Clay's word for it, and I'm gonna dive into this movie and watch it. And I think I was halfway through before I said to myself, this is a movie I wouldn't mind watching again.
I'm glad I got a chance to watch it again, actually. So, I feel like I should state right off the bat, like we say this every time, but this is a spoiler-filled podcast, and especially with this film, y'all should watch it first. It was worth seeing, and you should kind of have it be not spoiled for you.
Yeah, because I was intrigued, I was captivated. And there was parts of me that just did not want to take notes anymore. I just wanted to sit and watch and enjoy the movie, even though I enjoyed some of the movies that we've enjoyed. But this is one of those ones I really wanted to delve more into it, and that's why I probably watch it again.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I was hands down. Well, we'll get into it. I don't want to ruin it too soon into the podcast, but yeah, it was good. Good.
So let's jump right on into it. We start off with a black and white screen, or just a black screen, and then we see a Bible verse come up from Psalm 91.
It's a dark, scary chapter of the Bible. Amongst a lot of dark, scary chapters, there's a lot of talk of pestilence and destruction.
Pestilence and destruction, and this whole angels and demons thing. But let's see, we are in a countryside. There's like a beautiful shot of this countryside where they're at. And we see this woman, she's looking for a specific house to either rent or buy. I couldn't figure that out at the beginning, but she wants a house that's specifically facing west. And then the realtor she's talking with, she pays the realtor in cash, for his privacy. And we learn that she eventually is meeting up with a man that she's going to pick up at the train station. And we don't know who this man is. We're not really sure what's going on, only that something dark is being planned.
Yeah, it's a pretty scary house. It's got the house itself has Amityville overtones to it. It's this really old, I don't know, would you call it a ranch style house? A lot of open ground around it. It's a country house, and our main character is Sophia, and that's the lady that's buying the house. And like you said, she's hurriedly buying it. She's kind of buying off the realtor. Here, keep your suckhole shut about it. You don't need to talk about this house. So she gives him money, and then she meets with the other main character, Joseph Solomon, who's got the most spooky horror movie name you could come up with. I'm surprised his middle name isn't Vladimir or something.
I didn't even know who the characters' names, to I must have missed it in their introductions or something, but I was referring to them as pretty much her, she, and him, and then I was like, well, let me change his name to Warlock, so because he's kind of like this. And then eventually I had to look it up on IMDb, going, oh, they did have character names, so I guess it's somewhere in the movie they had introduced themselves as Joseph and Sophia. But luckily in this movie, that's pretty much the only two characters we have to deal with.
Pretty much. There's a couple of ancillary characters, but very few. And in fact, the one that I can think of offhand, I don't know that we even really needed her to be in it. But yeah, well, she hadn't come up yet. But anyway, we'll get to her. So Sophia, you get the idea that this is kind of a interview that she's doing with the other lead actor, this middle-aged, balding English man with a beard. He looks like he's played a game or two of the Dungeons and Dragons in his lifetime.
Yeah, this is a guy who probably takes Dungeons and Dragons to the extremes, where
he can tell you all the dark esoteric roots of the game.
Right, and he's the kind of guy that would, in the game that says, oh, you guys perform a ritual and you summon a demon, and he's the guy that actually sits down and writes out the ritual and has his players perform the acts, and you have to be really
yeah, like you're really put on the spot with him as the DM or dungeon master for the uninitiated. Yeah, he takes it seriously. Looks kind of like a juggalo in my mind.
Okay, I didn't get that impression, but now that you say that, I can see it.
He's one of the dudes that can get clean cut enough to make it to work. And,
yeah. Oh, you know what? It probably should have dawned on me because he was wearing the clown makeup, and
yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He looked exactly like Violent J. No, he didn't. Anyway, moving on.
So he asks about, it is kind of like an interview process that's going on. She mentions that she's talked to other people about what she is specifically looking for, and
You're not the only magic man that I've interviewed.
Right, exactly. And this Joseph guy kind of scoffs. He's like, I guess you asked Martin that same question, huh? Or,
he knows all the magician community is a real tight-knit bunch. They all know one another. So.
Right, yeah. They're all hanging out at the Magic Castle in Los Angeles.
Well, there's definitely some magic afoot, or the need of some magic. Sophia is hiring Joseph to perform some kind of ritual. We get that sense, and sex comes up automatically. He pretty much.
Yeah.
Part of his deposit involves some ritualistic sex. He says it's necessary. I wrote it down and then I read it. It's in this book that I've been drawing and writing.
I study up a lot on sex. I watch a lot of porn, and it's very ritualistic how I go through my masturbation techniques, and I figure I might as well incorporate it into my ritual. Sounds legit. Okay.
Something tell me Homeboy likes the Scooby-Doo parody kind of category.
Well, yeah, so he asked her a lot of questions about if she stick to a strict regime, as far as fasting and not having sex herself, and asked if she's a Catholic or a Protestant. And then he comes to the question I think that's on everyone's mind is like, what does she want from this ritual? And she comes out and just, this whole time he's saying, you have to be honest with me. You have to be honest because that will purify the ritual. You have to be purified before going into this. So what's the first thing she does but, lie to him?
She lies to his face. She tells him that I'm doing this for love. There's a man that doesn't love me anymore, and I want to, do this love spell. And Joseph, they're at the house. There's a lot of driving back and forth. Joseph wanted to see the house that he's to do the ritual in. And that's when Sophia tells him, I'm doing this for love. And then he says, I'm not feeling it. Drive me back to London and give me my money that you promised me. Yeah. And there's a little bit of hemming and hawing. And then on the way back to London, she admits that, okay, I'm doing this because I want to speak to my dead child again. That's the actual reason. And so very early on, we've established lying equals bad. So we're one lie in already.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, you're doing this dark ritual. Why are you lying to him? Of course, if I was the necromancer or the warlock and some girl, and I is paying me all this money and we're getting a specific regime, and she says, oh, I want this guy to love me. or because I love him, but he doesn't love me, I'd be like, oh, give me. I would say the same thing that he did.
Yeah, I would too. Like pathetic, totally pathetic. Anyone that I've known that's been in that situation, and I've seen it run both ways. You feel that immediate kind of allergic contempt for them. Like, oh, grow a fucking spine.
Exactly.
No wonder he doesn't love you. You suck.
And that's pretty much what Joseph says. He says, well, just get over it. Get on the internet and find you someone else. And
yeah, I mean, she's an attractive woman. It's just pathetic, in his mind. That's Joseph's stance. I wasn't nearly as judgmental, but when she tells him that, okay, the real reason that I'm doing this is because I want to speak to my dead son, that compels him to say yes. So, you get the sense right away of who's manipulating who.
Yeah, it goes back and forth in the manipulation here, and that's what I enjoyed, the relationship between the two, because it wasn't an exactly kind friendship, but I think as it goes on, they start getting a more respect for each other. There's stuff that happens that is shady as shit that immediately puts you off as the liking one of them. I'm not going to say who just yet, but
it bounces back and forth. Out of curiosity, did your wife watch this with you?
No, she didn't. She wasn't here.
Oh, it was interesting to watch this with Carrie because she had a kind of a contrasting viewpoint of which character was annoying. So I'm glad I got to watch this with a woman and kind of get an opposing opinion about it while I was watching it.
Right? Yeah. Maybe I should. Well, I said I do want to watch it again, so maybe I can coerce her to watch it.
Yeah. But anywho, Joseph explains they're back at the house at this point, and he's explaining Gnosticism and Kabbalah and all these other, esoteric things. He's going on this long harangue about it's almost like he's still trying to sell her on his capability as a wizard. I think the Necronomicon and Dianetics comes up in his harangue at some point.
He goes into depth on what is going to happen, where what she needs to do, and she goes through several steps of the ritual, and it's like at this point she's so dead set on it. I don't think you have to keep telling her that, hey, this is some dangerous shit we're gonna do, and we need to be careful. I think she's already aware of that. So
well, she should be, but the lying thing, he hammered that home right away. That should have been his first red flag that maybe she might be a troublesome client. Anyone in the graphic design business has gone through a similar process with clients that they've worked with. It's like, you got to trust your instincts. This might be terrible. But.
And we learned that that Joseph, our warlock, is going through DTs because apparently he's an alcoholic as well, and he needs his booze. And he happened to bring a little bottle of whiskey with him.
Yeah, he brought some along to take a sniff when the DTs start to get too bad. He admits that he drinks alcohol, and it's related to these rituals that he does, and that's something that I liked about the movie. Right away was that the magic seemed to be handled with this kind of, I don't know, it felt real in a weird way. None of it felt cast away or silly. It sounded like somebody really put effort into learning the Gnostic backgrounds of what they were talking about, so it sounded legit.
Right, and this wasn't the typical horror movie like The Gate or something like that where the kids just perform a simple ritual that happens in a few minutes that doesn't take a lot of setup. This is a very intricate process that takes months, and that he says is going to take months. It's going to take time. He says we have to stock up on food because once we set the barrier outside, which is like the salt barrier that surrounds the house, he goes, once we set that barrier, we cannot cross it. We cannot leave the house. So we need to be fully purified going into this situation.
Yeah, fasting, cleansing, real rigorous diet. He draws these intricate glyphs on the floor. And like you said, he tells her to go out and stock up on groceries because they're going to be stuck inside the house for several months. So while Sophia is grocery shopping, she sees there's this neat scene where she sees this lady with a hoodie on kidnapping a child. And it's her dead child. And I was vague with if this was a flashback, if this was the present or something remembered. I thought it was a really neat scene.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't too sure what was happening. I thought it was maybe a vision she was having of, or maybe she was just going to discover just some kid crying and a mom just, hanging out and trying to console her kid. But yeah, it's kind of vague, and you kind of see the child, but you don't see the faces of either because it's all kind of this blurry aesthetic that the filmmaker chose. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know if it was now or then. And then she's interrupted by this lady that turns out to be her younger sister. And I don't know if her sister was stalking her and happened upon her at the grocery store. It seems like a weird coincidence that you would just bump into one another like that, because her sister seems frantic, like she's been trying to get a hold of her.
Yeah, I thought that was odd that her sister kind of ambushes her out in the middle of the parking lot. And then, I didn't know who it was at first. I thought it was a friend. And then, of course, it is established when they go to sit down in this little cafe, and the sister is begging her not to go through with this madness.
Yeah, like, you need to not dick around with this black magic is the gist of what she's saying. Just, this is weird. I guess she said she was Protestant, right? That their family was Protestant. Something Christian.
No, Catholic. She said she was Catholic, yeah. But the sister tells her not to do this unholy ritual. But Sophia, we find out that Sophia was in a mental home because of her child being killed or something. And I don't know if that really comes into play later, but maybe it just kind of gives a more bigger frame of mind to where she is at the moment.
Well, it's the day before they're locked into this ritual. So she happened upon her in this pivotal moment where you can turn back. So the film does a pretty good job of establishing that the stakes are high, that this isn't just some silly ritual or some silly whatever, like a grift or a con game.
Yeah, and that. Even if it was a con game, what an elaborate con game. And honestly, that's like kind of what I was expecting as it was going along. I was like, what if this whole thing was just a big con that this guy had? And,
like it turns into a very different movie midway because it's now about her going psycho on the guy. I wonder if they played with that, or if there was some intentional subterfuge with the audience to get us thinking in that direction.
Yeah, there might have been, because there's a lot of subtle little things in this movie that I really like that kind of turned your worldview a little bit.
Yeah.
At home, Joseph is preparing. I say at home. He's at the house and he's preparing for the ritual. He asks her again about something. But he says that half truths. Oh, he asks her if she can speak German, and she says, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" Or I guess I can speak German. But he says he accidentally cuts himself or something, and he's like, "Why are you lying? This happened because you just lied." Him cutting himself. And she's like, I'm not lying. I can speak German. He goes, "What are you not telling me?" She goes, "Well, I can't carry on a full conversation, but she can understand it." And
yeah, it's like lying is just intrinsic to her, and he gets to quit fucking doing that. Things are going to go bad if you keep lying.
Yeah,
second warning.
He has to tell her that half truths are considered lies. So.
I'm dealing with a child here. Tie your shoes.
And so we flash to a scene where she's just walking out in the countryside, and she's a dead dog with maggots all over it. And
oh my God, it was this terrible omen. She finds a dog's mummified corpse. Joseph tells her, "Go for a walk because we're going to be locked inside the house for months once we do this. So this is going to be your last chance for a while to get outside." And the first thing she sees is this terrible dead omen puppy that's got a collar. So it was clearly the collar is turned upwards so that we can't miss it. That this was somebody's pet that's just out here good and dead now. And she looks at it with this cold kind of realization that seems to say, I realize that this is a bad omen and I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, so we see this bad omen, and then we flash back to now Joseph and Sophia. Joseph's pouring salt around the house, and that's that where she let out. No, wait a minute. What am I thinking of?
No, that's right. Yeah, the next scene shows him pouring that barrier of kosher salt around the house.
Yeah.
I know it's kosher salt because I've lived with goofy asses that believe that matters.
So he tells her like this is the last thing he does. He has a little opening in the salt, and he says you're free to leave, come and go, but once this barrier sealed. So she's like, oh, just close it up, you silly ghost.
She said, do that shit. And then she waved at him, and then he closed it. So we're in it now.
We're in it. She can't leave. And this is where the dynamic between their relationship really turns, because she's asleep. She wakes up, or she doesn't wake up, but he comes in with a bucket of water and just douses her in it.
Yeah, day one of your Jedi training is the ice bucket challenge first thing in the morning. And he's just yelling at her. I can't even remember. I think she was supposed to be up earlier and she's sleeping in, or he said sleep in a different spot and she disobeyed it. She's a terrible adept right off.
She's horrible. She lies. She's not really doing what she needs to do to purify herself. I just a side note, I did notice he was wearing this black metal band called Melakesh.
What are they about?
It's a shirt. It's a band that's from Assyrian Armenian members that originated in Jerusalem. That's where they're from. And nice. The name is a Hebrew Aramaic word, and it means like king of fire or fiery king. I'm not sure if that's
mind blowing. There's nothing that isn't deliberate and intentional in this movie.
Yeah, and I had to do a double take. I was like, is he wearing a Melakesh shirt? I think he is. Holy shit, that's pretty cool. But anyways,
yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. And it makes sense that it wouldn't have been the same if he was wearing Cannibal Corpse or Dimmu Borgir or something that, like somebody even with a passing knowledge of metal would be like, just shrug. It actually meant something. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So he yells and yells at her and chides her, and then we see that she sleeps and has these weird visions, I guess, of her child being led away by that person in the cloak who is like an old woman or something.
It seemed to be you couldn't tell if it's an old woman or it must have been, because we get confirmation of that later. I thought it was a teenager. It was just somebody in a hoodie.
Yeah.
It had a very kind of dark little orphan, or not little orphan, what am I trying to say, little Red Riding Hood kind of thing. Like it had this quality. So she's obviously haunted by this, and so we still don't know if she's covering up something. It seems to be her MO so far. But Joseph tells her, eat this mushroom, and I'm thinking, oh cool, there's a trip beforehand. And she says, is it going to be awful? And he was like, yep. And so she starts to puke violently, and I guess this is part of the purifying ritual.
Yeah, so he's still walking her through these different ritual movements, and eating that, and her puking, and her continuing to train. It is kind of like it is like a Jedi training, or
it's a pupil learning kind of montage, but. In the hands of a lesser director, it would feel like padding, or it would seem boring and silly. But like we said, nothing feels like that. Nothing feels tawdry in this. It seems like all this is real important, and he keeps telling her, because I wonder if he's like this with his other clients, or if she's just kind of a troubling case. I wonder if he's attracted to her, so he's getting into it when he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of warning shots fired about her as a customer.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point where every movement, every scene is deliberate and feels like it needs to be there. As far as the ritual goes, and how they're prepped for it, and how they explain it, that's why it was just pulling me in, because I'm not into magic or all that stuff, but it was really fascinating to watch, because it seemed like the director or the writer, both, I guess, put a lot of time into research.
The writer was also the director, so this is kind of his baby. I don't know what else he's done, but he did a real good job on this one. So the next part of of the ritual process is everybody's favorite, is bloodletting. Joseph cuts his arm, pours the blood into a glass, and gives it to Sophia. And he's like, drink up, bottoms up.
Because she tells him another lie, or she said that she was lying about her kid before, because during this moment that she's still going through different rituals. Like he's prepping her, like, oh, you got to sit in a circle for 2 days with no food or water, and then we'll do that for more rooms later on, and you're going to be hurting and tested psychologically and physically. And we see all this stuff as that's happening, and she's getting drenched in freezing water in a kind of a triangle ritual circle. But he
puts her through the ringer.
he asks her if one part of the ritual is that she must forgive anybody that was in her life. She has to forgive, and she's like, I can't do it. I'm not going to forgive. I'm unable to forgive. And that kind of puts a stimmy in Joseph's plan, because that's part of the ritual. And she's like, is that going to be a problem? He's like, well, it's going to be a problem, but we can get around it. And that getting around it is that she has to drink his blood. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so he offers it to her, and she's, I had to take her side on this one. Like, dude, hepatitis and HIV is forever.
Yeah.
Drink it. And he just starts yelling at her in his very authoritarian English accent.
Yeah, this is the most unattractive vampire in the world. Drink that blood.
Drink it. Yeah, there's nothing sexy about it. Yeah. So she chokes it down, and she acts like she's going to puke it up, and he barks at her some more. Don't puke it up. Keep it down.
And I was like, this kid better be worth all this dumb trouble in my head at this point, because I was like, this is a lot of trouble to go through just to talk to your dead kid again.
Yeah, you go through all this trouble, and the first thing he's like is, I want a toy. Take me to Kmart.
I'm just going to
place in the past, I guess.
I'm just going to run out and just mess up that salt circle around there.
Come what may. I don't care if demons are attacking me. I can't hang out with this kid. I forgot that I was kind of glad he's dead. No, I'm kidding.
But she wakes up, or she's in her room. She asks Joseph if he's been through her stuff, and he's like, no, I didn't take your shit. Whatever you think happened. She's like, oh, okay. So I guess this little trinket that reminded her of her son is missing, which is like this little goblin figure.
Yeah, it must have been his favorite toy. It looks like a shitty Dungeons and Dragons figure from like an action figure.
Yeah, so it's disappeared. She can't find it. But then, more shit happens.
Yeah, like a bird just smacks itself. It just kills itself against the window when they're talking, and leaves a bloody smear on the window. And Joseph says, okay, it has begun. And she's like, it's just a bird. It's weird that she would be skeptical of him. You're paying him to perform magic, and you're gonna shit talk him when it starts to work. He's like, no, this is it. It's kicking off. It's starting to kick in, the old magic.
And then we see more scenes of the rituals becoming more elaborate. Not the rituals themselves, the symbols and sigils on the floor become more elaborate and filled in, and they look really beautiful.
Yeah, they do. It looks like they put a lot of work into the set design. The books that they're reading look all beautiful and hand drawn too. They remind me of the hand drawn art in like the Evil Dead films when they're opening the Necronomicon. It's got those creepy illustrations. We see more of it as the movie progresses, but yeah, the set design, the props and everything really kind of place you in that world. There's after, let's see what happens after the blood drinking. They have their ears to the floor, and then something bangs up from below them, like the spirit bangs on the floor. And then Joseph takes a piece of chalk out and makes an X on the floor. And he says, we got to proceed very carefully from here on out.
Yeah, it's not just an X. He puts a sigil on there. He writes out, it's like this little, it just looks like a symbol that he kind of draws in the middle of the circle there.
Yeah, it looks like it might be Arabic letters around these sigils that he's drawn.
Yeah, and he's definitely like, we need to watch. We need to be tighter in our rituals. And speaking of tighter, this is where we come into the ritual sex part.
Oh yes, yeah. And he said, well, I told you about it. She's laying down half naked in her underwear, and he's painting sigils on her back. And he's saying, I told you we had to do this. And she's like, yeah, I know, I know. And Joseph's like, all right, go put on a t-shirt and put some makeup on. And she looks at him for a second. He's like, I'm just a man. I'm just a man.
Yeah, yeah. And I got that part, but the whole time I'm thinking, is this for real? Because if she was like that, I'd be like, why does he want me to put on makeup?
Shouldn't there be a ceremonial robe or something? I'd rather shave my head than do it. Yeah, it just, she seems justifiably skeptical of his motives here. So we get the ritualistic sex scene, which is about one of the more uncomfortable things I've seen in a minute, even more so in light of recent events, like in the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah.
It had a real Me Too vibe to it.
Yeah, so there's not much sex to it. She comes in, he tells her to slowly take off her top, to put her hands in her knickers, and then he reaches in his pants and starts jerking himself off, and tells her to take off her panties, then get on the floor and bend over, and so he can see everything, and he just kind of jerks off, and he's done.
He just nuts all over himself, and she's pissed off. She's super livid, and I've seen this movie twice, and I was thinking, like, isn't that better? But why are you so mad? And I thought about it. I'm thinking, I can't help but think, okay, I mentally prepared myself to actually have sex with you. In a way, this is worse. This is more off-putting.
It's more off-putting just because it is a total manipulation on Joseph's part. He just wanted to jerk off and have his own sexual pleasure, and he incorporated and he manipulated her into thinking it was going to be part of this elaborate ritual, but it had nothing to do with it. And that's where I was like, okay, this guy needs to just fuck off and die or something, because that was low.
Maybe. I mean, it was low, but maybe he had kind of an attack of conscience right as he was about to carry through with it, so he just kind of, still gross. I'm not justifying what he did in any way, but I wonder if he almost was like, oh, I feel bad about actually having sex with her. She's already got hepatitis from drinking my blood. I guess I'll just finish and let her get on out of here. But she was hella mad about that.
Yeah, and so it shows her being mad in a few scenes, but then we get a kind of another montage of them doing their same rituals of doing some body shaving. She's drinking a little bit more blood. She's taking those freezing ritual showers as the ritual progresses.
I want to go on record that she deserves some ritualistic apologies and maybe a ritualistic shoulder rub. All that at that point, I wouldn't want him touching me with his gooey fingers.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm just like, oh God, it just really put me off to his character, but maybe that's what was, supposed to happen. I mean, it wasn't like he was entirely endearing in the first place, but
no, but he sure doesn't do a great job selling himself. But yeah, it was an odd interaction. But she finds flowers in the hallway not long after this. And he says, this is it. I told you it's starting. She asked if is it possible these blew in from outside, and he said, no, this is the magic working.
Yeah, this is the magic working. But we see some time pass, and she gets pissed at him, and she says that the ritual is not working. And he's like, well, maybe it's not working because you're still not being truthful. And so she's keeps denying that she's lying. She's like, I'm not lying. He's like, you're lying. She's like, no, I'm not lying. And he's like, and he fucking gets up and grabs her. He gets up and grabs her and throws her on the table and says, stop fucking lying to me. And
so about the Hulk out.
So now she finally tells him the truth, that she's not looking to talk to her dead child. She's looking for vengeance against her child's killer.
Yeah, very different. Yeah, and I think he calls her the C word about 17 times. He's just livid because, as he established, there's no turning back. So we're talking to deities. We're talking to demons and angels. He says that quite literally. This is what we're doing. You can't like just hang up on them. The call has been made.
Well, yeah, and this was I thought this was another very interesting point in the movie, because when she says that she was looking for vengeance against her child's killer, she had this notion or this thought that he wouldn't want to do it because of that, but he does not care what her motives are. He just wants her to be pure, and that pureness means she needs to be honest about everything. He doesn't care if she wants to start a black plague, on the world. He just wants her to be truthful and purified so the ritual will work.
Well, at this point, I think that that's what he wanted. I think that that's why he was so insistent on knowing her intention beforehand, because he wasn't interested in love. I don't care about you getting this guy to love you, but I can get behind you talking to your dead son, and now it's something totally different. Yeah, I'd be pissed off too.
Oh yeah.
There's you can totally empathize with her motives, but you can understand why he's so pissed off about this too. It's like, I told you, this is about the fourth time lying comes up, and the repercussions of it.
So the repercussions of this specific lie is that he gets drunk in his bedroom on the whiskey, and he wakes her up and takes her into the bathroom. He's filled up this tub full of cold water. And he starts dumping water on her head because he's trying to purify her again, I guess, in a way. Just kind of like when she was ingesting the blood, that was another kind of purification ritual. So we see him pouring this cold water, and then he kind of dips. He said, I'm going to have to dip you in the water like 3 times, like a baptism.
Yeah.
And then on the 3rd time he dips her in the water, he just basically drowns her.
Yeah, he holds her under until the bubbles stop coming up, and then he drags her out of the tub and gives her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and she spits up, she gurgles a bunch of water, and she's back. And he tells her at that point, you've been reborn, the ritual has been reset, your intention is pure. I had to do that to get the ritual back on track.
Yeah, she had to go and touch the beyond. I think that's what he said. Like get there right on the edge of being completely dead and then pulling back, and he's like, and she's like, I didn't see anything when she was dead. And he kind of brushes that off. He's like, oh well, whatever, you're good now anyways.
I don't believe you, even though one of us has been nearly dead and one of us hasn't. He did tell her not to lie to him. I mean, I'm not saying it was okay to drown her, but he is the professional.
Well, now I know what I'm going to do to my wife if she ever lies to me. I would just got dark.
I'd get her. I'd get her feedback on that.
I'm just gonna cut this part out of the thing. You said you washed the fucking dishes, but there's still a dirty dish. Get in the bathtub.
Guess who needs to be purified?
Get in the bathtub. Okay, so
angry emails, you say? Okay, so.
Okay, so yeah, she gets. She's obviously pissed. They're talking in the kitchen, and she violently assaults him and pushes him against the counter. But we see like a flash of this knife that's just sitting there, and somehow this knife pierces his side.
Cutting halibut with, and he just left out chunks of rotting chicken on the blade. There weren't, but it's a black blade, so it looks like it might be hiding all kinds of flora and fauna. Yeah. And during their struggle, it goes right into his meaty man flank, right onto the side.
Yeah, and just kind of makes its way into there. No, she doesn't really stab him. She doesn't stab him. She doesn't have a knife. He just kind of falls against the blade, and it pierces him pretty soft. I mean, pretty easily.
It's got to be through a kidney. It's right in that spot. And he says that, oh, this is what I get. He just kind of almost takes it in stride. Yeah, this is what happens.
This is a sign.
I had Louis C.K'd you, and now this is the repercussion.
Okay, so she kind of douses it with whiskey and patches them. Not really patches. Does she sew up the wound, or she just puts a Band-Aid on it pretty much?
I think she just slaps an ouchie Band-Aid on it after pulling it out. And like you said, put some bottom shelf bourbon all over it. That'll work.
It's better than nothing, I guess. So
I guess, yeah.
You gotta work with what you have. So we, the next day we kind of see she's hearing weird things. A door vibrates in a hallway. We see a dark figure in a room behind her move. She walked to some room that looks like it has a Monster energy drink symbol on the wall.
There's like a bloody 3-clawed scratch on the wall.
Yeah, and so later they hang out and talk about vengeance and damnation, and he says she's just like him, if not worse, and she, of course, denies it and says that's not true at all. We are nothing alike. But it turns out they pretty much are.
They're peas in a pod, those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't take long before Joseph's knife wound starts to look red and angry, and the power goes out. She finds Joseph standing by the sink, and he's looking really pale and really sweaty. So he's unwell, that man.
Yeah, she finds him by the sink, and he's looking very weak, and he's becoming unclear in his thoughts and his mind, because there's a scene where she asks him about part of the ritual, and he kind of just does a guess. He says, I can't really think, but I think this is it. And but I'm like, oh god. Well, he looks at his wound again, and now it's oozing pus from infection or sepsis, whatever is happening in there. But
they used the sushi knife on that wound.
Yeah, it clearly punctured him. I'm like, how? She didn't. I mean, she pushed him, but not that hard. And even she pushed him hard. I don't know.
Like the knife would have had to have been stuck point out and buried into the drywall to get stabbed that good with it.
So it's night, and she hears her son's voice, and she walks down a dark hallway with a candle. It's very gothic at this point, and I just love the scene and the other scenes that come up as they become more gothic inspired, and we see her and her son have this conversation through the door. But she wants,
which was really creepy. Her son's disembodied voice is beyond the door, and he's yelling at her, "Let me in, mommy! Let me in! Let me in!"
Oh yeah, but she has this conversation, and the son's voice is really low, and I had to really kind of crank up the sound to hear what he was saying. But he said there's like a dog in here with him, and it's going to attack me, and you have to open up the door and let him in, and she won't, because she knows it's not really her son.
She's pretty savvy about that. That's what I liked about it. And the dog, I like that too, because it was almost like the demon, whatever it was beyond that door, was using the memory of the dead dog omen to kind of they were able to maybe pull that out of her mind. I maybe, jump into conclusions, but I don't think so. I think that they thought that through. It was creepy. Like that demon was doing everything it could to urge her to let it in. Like, I guess it needed an invitation or something.
Yeah, that's it kind of harkened back to exorcism kind of movies where it's obviously not the real person talking through the individual, but they're faking and trying to trick people. And it was pretty effective. I thought it was a very creepy, and especially when the door starts getting hammered on, but it doesn't sound like child fists. It sounds like a grown man is behind the door banging on it, and it's pretty intense. Yeah.
Oh, it was creepy. And Joseph says that this is the price of our rage.
Yeah, what does he mean by that?
I don't know what his rage has to do with it. I guess that he must have meant something. He was getting pretty lightheaded at this point.
This is true, yeah. Yeah, it's because Joseph witnesses the entire thing. He's out in the hallway, and she sits next to him, and they kind of do this small little bonding thing where you think, oh, they're getting closer, but I don't know. No,
it does. It lasts until morning, when Joseph's good and stiff and dead in the morning.
Well, I mean, yeah. So that does happen before she goes and witnesses. Talks to Joseph again. She's in a room, and she's writing more figures for the ritual, and she looks up and sees this outline of this dark figure sitting in a chair, smoking, right across from her. But it's so almost imperceptible. And you hear this voice that says, come closer, love. And that's what I can make out. And so she gets up with the candle and approaches this dark figure. You can't see anything. All you see is the red burn of the cigarette. And this is an incredibly creepy scene. I thought, oh, this is really cool. And when she gets closer, it's just a bundle of clothes, but there's still a lit cigarette on the ashtray.
Yeah. There's so many good moments like that in this movie that I forgot that one. Actually, yeah, it's now that you mention it, it was good.
Yeah, it was amazing. But right after that, she goes in and lies in bed with Joseph, and then Joseph is kind of rambling on about seeing his sister again. It doesn't really make a lot of sense because he is in kind of this infectious fever dream now.
Yeah, it does kind of humanize him a little bit right at it seems like he's not going to make it till morning. It's not really a big surprise when he doesn't, because he's shivering and cold, and his pallor does not look good. He looks even more pasty than he did originally. And he mentions that he misses his sister, which was kind of a neat line because he never brought her up before. So I guess he's in mourning as well, or maybe he had it was a suppressed memory that came out right at the end. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, he mentions before that, whatever they summon, whatever angel they summon, that, it will grant her something, but he wants something as well. And all he wanted was just to be left alone, I guess, to have quiet.
I just want to be away from people and to be left alone and in a nice quiet place. So I guess he kind of got that.
Yeah. But she now she's like, so he passes away in the night from the knife wound, and now she's kind of on her own with the ritual, and she starts panicking and look through all these books and starts to wig out a little bit. Because she's not really probably sure how to progress at this point.
Yeah, I guess she realizes that she didn't do her studying like she needed to. We see the books again that he was written. I wonder if she came across the note that says, "Talk your way into some sex. Say it for the ritual." It'd be funny if she found that specific passage.
That motherfucker.
But she goes down and she's sitting right at the salt barrier that they made, and you can see her pondering it, like, should I do it? Should I do it first? And she gets up and she just walks outside of the circle that he told her you can't do that. He said, "Don't that circle." There she goes.
Yeah, so she gets in her car and the car doesn't start, and so she just starts walking. And we see dark clouds roll in as she walks down an empty road, kind of in a daze through this beautiful countryside. It's I say beautiful, it's a barren countryside, but it's still beautiful nonetheless.
Yeah, it's the countryside in England, and it's overcast and dark, which fits the mood of the movie. So, but it's got this somber kind of lonely feeling about it.
Yeah, and she walks for a long time, and then suddenly she winds up back at the house again. Now, I don't think that was her plan.
Yeah, she ends up back at the house, and as she's walking in, she finds this photo of her son that they established earlier in the movie. It showed her tearing the photo in half so that you could just see her son. And she finds that in a puddle of what looks like puke or something.
That's what I thought was puke.
Yeah, it looks like vomit. And Joseph's body is at the foot of the stairs. So I don't know if he was able to crawl down there on his own power, or if he was taken down there.
Yeah, because we see some handprints on the wall as she walks in before she discovers the puke-covered photograph, and there's like these weird bloody handprints on the wall, so I'm not sure if that was his or perhaps the things we come across as she's sitting on the stairs looking at Joseph's body lie, in state down at the bottom of him, and we see these creepy pair of white, ghostly arms come out of the darkness and pull his body away.
Yeah, the third act comes upon us pretty quick. We realize that the final circle is complete, and the angry spirits have manifested and shown themselves, and they harass Sophia mightily.
Yeah, they are pissed. She went against the ritual. She stepped out of the circle, out of the salt circle, and so these are pissed off spirits. I didn't know whether to call them, I was calling them ghosts at first, and I was like, these are more than ghosts. They have to be some kind of demons, or
they seem to be like some kind of pagan wood deities or something like that. They seemed like redneck Cenobites to me.
Yeah. So she goes down a dark hallway and sees these dead-looking spirits, but she starts hearing cries of madness and agony around her in the house, and she runs through the hallway, and she finally gets into her own bedroom where she barricades herself in while the noise outside kind of persists of these ghostly beings, these demons, just screaming and crying and pounding on walls and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. It was. It was. It was. It was pretty effective. For some reason, I don't the spirits that didn't. I don't know. They didn't do it for me, but I don't know how I would have done it any better. Like it
Yeah.
would have been cheesy if they looked all campy with big old teethy grins and looked like you're a kid's version of demons. It probably would have derailed the movie at the end. But it was still it was a
Yeah, I was assuming that these were just like souls that have been suffering, and now they've been attracted to this ritual, and since the ritual can't be completed, they've kind of a doorway has been opened for them to kind of roam freely in this house.
yeah.
That's just my.
And they're angry. They harass the shit out of her. Don't they? They hold her down and cut a finger off and
Yeah,
punch her in the mouth. And
yeah. So she steps out the next morning, and the sun lights out. She doesn't hear anything. She hears like muffled voice of her son, and then she gets out and starts walking around the house. She sees the goblin toy of her son lying on the floor, and then we see something approach from the darkness, and it's the old woman with her son hand in hand. And then to the side, a demon comes out of nowhere and just kind of smacks her in the face, and she falls down, and you see her being dragged down a hallway, or her forehead is bleeding. There are like these ghost figures everywhere, and it feels like kind of like a purgatory hell place. She sees the body of a ghost of this dog that, we don't see the head of the dog, but we kind of see the outline of the body of it. Not that it really made any difference, but I thought these images are really cool.
And I'm sure if you dug into it, there'd be some kind of actual, mysticism. There's probably something relevant about it. Like none of it was accidental. It was creepy. Yeah. And as they're dragging her down the hallway, you get the idea that she's being pulled into perdition here.
Yeah.
This is
like
not good.
Like she's being damned. That's why I kind of figured that, since the ritual couldn't be completed or something happened, like she walked outside the circle, went against everything, that they're dragging
all those tall tales. I'm telling you,
they're dragging her to pretty much damnation, to hell, if you want. But yeah, they hold her down, and we see a demon. I guess a demon approach, and it's just like we don't see the face, just the body dragging these bolt cutters with it, and they pull her finger up and they just cut it off.
Yeah, she's screaming. Oh, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And then she breaks free somehow and runs through the madness of this realm. And they attempt to drag her back down, and she finds these stairs. She's crawling up. It's like a dream almost, where you're crawling upstairs and things just kind of slow down.
Yeah.
As you get higher, or you climb the stairs higher and higher, but we see the figures just wrap their arms around her, kind of put chains across her legs as just slow her and start pulling her slowly back into damnation. That's when we start seeing this bright white light appear from the top of the stairwell.
Yeah. So did they just let her go at that point, or she makes her way into that room?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as soon as that light kind of shines brightly, the figures let her go, and she starts walking up into the light.
So she goes into the room, and there's this. It was surreal. There was this giant person in there. Not a person, is obviously some kind of god. It seemed like almost a Greek god, like a Apollo or something. He's wreathed in gold.
Yeah, I mean, I just assumed it was an angel. I mean, that's kind of how some of the angels are described, as being a sword.
It seemed angelic, celestial.
Yeah, and it had this huge sword. It was kneeling there in kind of this ritual room, and she's clutching her bloodied hand. She's all beat the fuck up, and he starts talking, but you can't understand what he's saying. It's just like this rumble, and it's like the voice of this thing is too much for even this realm where she's at. And everything just rumbles, and all she can just do is stare at it and just say she's sorry. Yeah.
It kind of like, remember in it's a silly reference, but Dogma, the Kevin Smith movie. It was kind of that's what it reminded me of. Is like, hey, hearing the actual voice of this creature would just make your mind explode. So he was just mouthing the words to her. I'd be interested to see what those lines were from somebody that can read lips. I wonder, it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I've always heard, I've read stories of how the voice of God, could never be understood, or the voice of the angels have, or once if they're physically manifested, the human mind couldn't handle the strain of it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not meant for mortal ears. It was a neat scene.
Yeah.
Because they established the gold leaf falling from the ceiling. I forgot to mention it, but they established that earlier in the movie. So there's just gold raining down around, cascading down on this creature. And so Sophia makes her request, and she, instead of asking for vengeance, she says, I want to forgive. I want to be able to forgive.
Yeah, she wants the power to forgive, and so she kind of does a 180 on what her original intention was.
Say what, Pip? A very important lie. Now she's lying to God or an angel or something.
So we see kind of these flash back and forth scenes of, I'm assuming it's Joseph's body she has wrapped up that she's kind of letting go into this murky pond, but we flash back and the angel smiles and blinks, and obviously she's been granted the power of forgiveness because
twitches his nose like
Samantha. Ding, 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 ding. And so we flash to her in her car, and it cranks up, and she pretty much drives away from the madness of the house after the ritual. And she's, I guess, a different person, and that's how it is.
She seems oddly placid and at peace. I mean, it was just poor Joseph's dead in a swamp. His body just sinks to the bottom of this swamp near her property. She's going to have some splaining to do when it comes to that. I'm sure that his phone records have her in there on some level.
Remember, she paid a lot of money for that privacy, so she's not going to be able to go back to that house ever. She's probably moved to the U.S. or something.
Somewhere in London, there's a realtor counting his checks going, I think I just sold a house to a murderer.
Which countries have expedition treaties with them? I don't know.
I know nothing. Yeah. So that was a dark song. Is hands down the most, probably the best movie that we've reviewed so far. I don't know that it's my favorite, but it's the best one.
Yeah, very well made. I wouldn't say it's exactly a low budget film, but I know they probably had a tight one just because there's only two characters pretty much in the whole story, and it takes place at one location. But
yeah, there's two characters in one set, and and when they do go to London, there's not a whole lot of establishing shots. You can tell that they wanted to get back to the house as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Like I said at the top of this, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, and I may actually just watch it again because I do like some of the intricacies as far as the rituals, and I would like to get a better sense of how she actually turned that 180. Was it because of Joseph? Was it I don't know where that realization came that she wanted the power to forgive. So
maybe I wondered the same thing. I wonder if that was her part of her journey was to just come to that realization, or if she knew that from the outset. Maybe she wasn't lying as much as she was just coming to her own truth. There's a lot to this.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, like the like all the Gnosticism and Kabbalah and all that stuff. It's it has its roots. I don't know a ton about that stuff, but
No.
it seems like that they did their homework.
Yeah, a lot of love went into this film. You could tell it. So I think this is a very good entry into the A's of our adventure here. And
A is for a dark song so far.
A for a dark song. What do we have coming up next?
Next one in the A category is Aftershock. It's an earthquake movie, which, I don't know if it's mislabeled. I kind of put disaster movies in a different category as horror, but allegedly it's a horror. We're going to watch it. So.
Oh, boy. I think I saw not the preview for it, but I think I've seen the splash page or the thumbnail for it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's come across my Netflix feed at some point. I haven't watched a trailer for it yet, but I think it takes place in Chile.
It's Chile.
Chile.
Okay. Well,
Chile.
Chile. Okay, well, I guess that is it for another episode of Cinematic Suffering. Thank you all.
Right.
Thank you all for joining us on yet another week. 8 weeks. 8 weeks. It doesn't even feel like 8 weeks.
No, it's gone by quick.
Yeah, and so thank you again, and we will catch you on the flip side, on the flippity flip, as the kids say these days.
That's right. That's exactly what those chillins are saying.
That means next week, I think.
Yes, it does.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you later.
Later.
Bye.
Hey guys, just a few plugs and shoutouts before we end this episode. Clay is an extremely talented and twisted comic artist, and you should visit his pride and joy hboys.com. That's HBOYZ.com. If you're a fan of death and black metal, check out Jason's band Gravehill on all social media platforms, as well as his doom metal project Stygian Crown. Music was provided by Face X Hugger. Check out Face X Hugger on Bandcamp and Twitter for more synthwave, horror-themed music. Questions, comments, and hate mail should be directed to our Twitter account @CinematicSuffer. Thanks for listening.